Are you afraid that later in life you'll regret not having spent enough quality time with your kids? Do you worry that when your kids get older, they won't want to return home for Christmas because you didn't create a strong enough bond with them? Are you fearful you're not doing enough to prepare them to succeed in academics and life? Then read more to your kids. This is perhaps the best use of your time and energy as a parent. Welcome to the top takeaways from the Read Aloud family, written by Sarah MACKENZIE and brought to you by the Better Parent Academy. Creating better parents one book at a time. Takeaway number 1. The benefits of reading speak for themselves. As parents, it seems like the time we spend with our kids is dominated by endless car rides to and from school and various lessons and activities. Nobody's saying that kids shouldn't have these opportunities. But if you want to slow things down and really spend quality time with your kids, not much beats reading a book with them in your lap. And luckily, kids love it. Reading aloud to kids can drastically improve their vocabulary. This is because kids have a remarkable ability to learn through context. So by simply reading them stories with new words, you'll be gifting them a better command of language. The same goes for grammar and other sophisticated language patterns. Just by hearing master authors at work, your kids' linguistic abilities will improve, setting them on their way to better understand the world around them and truly command language. It can also help them academically. For example, research by Professor Joseph Price of Brigham Young University suggests that reading aloud to your kids during the first 10 years of their lives can significantly boost standardized test scores. Reading books can also give kids better perspective. Kids can hear first-person accounts of people living in different circumstances, cultures, and times in history. They can learn about people living in cities, small towns, on farms, or in different countries. They can learn about people living in poverty, or about famous people and the circumstances behind their most difficult decisions. In the end, kids are not only entertained by stories, but they live through them, facing odds and overcoming struggles along with their favorite characters. In this way, kids can lead 1,000 lives, and on the way, develop empathy for others while gaining a valuable head start not only with morals and ethics, but also with some of life's most painful lessons, which hopefully they won't have to repeat themselves. Nowhere is this better manifested than in the wealth of fairy tales handed down by generations of concerned parents. Often kids will learn more from a short fairy tale's cautions than they will from a parent's repeated warnings and admonishments. And let's be honest with ourselves for a second. All the benefits of reading aloud to your kids come at the modest cost of a library card. Plus, reading to your kids is painless and even fun. One of the best feelings you can have is your child falling asleep in your lap while being read her favorite story. Takeaway number 2. Create a book club culture. Since our kids already love being read to, a parent's main job is simply not to screw things up. For example, one way to turn kids against reading is by quizzing them or giving them assignments like book reports or the creation of dioramas. Would you go to a book club if you had to take a quiz beforehand? Or prepare some sort of time-consuming project? I wouldn't either, and neither would your kids. A parent's job instead is to create a comfortable and fun environment when reading books. In fact, if your little ones can't sit still, provide them with Legos or things to draw with. You can even read to them while they do chores like folding laundry. Kids have a remarkable ability to follow along even while their hands are busy. One of the author's best suggestions is to get audiobooks and listen to them in the car. This is especially useful on long road trips. Audiobooks are a great option because professional narrators are often skilled actors with an ability to bring stories to life with their cadence and expression. This is a critical point, because while it's important to encourage kids to read as much as possible on their own, reading aloud to them can make a story more carefree and enjoyable. We see this especially with small children who get so focused on recognizing known sight words and sounding out new ones that they lose sight of the full nuance of a story. By reading aloud to them, you can remove some of this burden and allow your kids to listen, imagine, and enjoy. Reading aloud to your kids allows them to focus on reading comprehension, which will accelerate their development into confident solo readers. Kids should also be allowed, and indeed encouraged, to ask questions and make comments during story time. The author recommends asking kids open-ended questions to encourage discussion. For instance, while reading The Wizard of Oz, ask your kids if they would choose a heart or a brain. Then get them to explain why. Similarly, you can ask your children which character in a story they most admire, or which they most see themselves in. Their answers will often surprise you and lead you to memorable discussions. But remember, you don't need to discuss every book. If your kids want to move on, then move on. This isn't class time. And also remember that while the classics are great, if your kids don't like them, chuck them. Don't turn your kids off by reading something they don't enjoy. If your kids don't like a book, toss it in favor of something they do. Maybe you can come back to it when they're older. And don't be afraid to choose light and easy books. After all, your goal in reading aloud is to find books your kids love. books they'll beg you to read just one more chapter of before going to bed. Often, by the end, you'll all feel like you've gone on a trip together. Trying on someone else's shoes for a while does that. What greater bonding experience can you ask for? And don't forget, the end goal here is to develop in kids a keen interest in reading for pleasure. When kids start reading for the sheer joy of it, the battle is won. Takeaway number 3. How do I find the time? The author relates an anecdote from Dr. Meg Meeker, a pediatric specialist who notes that many parents come to her worried about their kids' self-esteem. They have all sorts of plans to fix it, like swim teams and martial arts classes. But Dr. Meeker says a much simpler solution exists. Children will likely have great self-esteem if they believe their parents like them and want to be with them. So why complicate things? Just sit down and read with your kids. If you like, make an event out of it by drinking hot chocolate and eating cookies. Your kids will love it. Just 10 minutes every other day will do. This can happen any time of the day, including right before bed. If you have more time, then read more. If you bump this up to 10 minutes every day, you'll have read to your kids for over 60 hours by the end of the year. 60 hours. Take books with you everywhere so that you can read in a parked car while waiting for soccer practice to start, or in the waiting room of a doctor's office. The author recommends reading as early as possible in the day, but no kid is going to turn down a bedtime story. And if you need help, go to readaloudcalendar.com and download a free calendar. Stick it on your fridge door and mark a big X on every day that you read aloud for 10 or more minutes. See how many days in a row you can get. If you get 2 weeks straight, reward yourself and your kids with a pizza or ice cream party. Trust me, once your kids know what's at stake, they will enthusiastically remind you to get the daily reading done. This will be beneficial to everyone, because on their deathbed, nobody has ever said, if I could do the parenting thing over again, I'd read less to my kids. Please, however, be wary of screen time. The makers of social networking applications understand dopamine way better than the rest of us. Screens drown out everything else. The author advises limiting screen time to only a few hours a day. It's also a good idea to not have reading time next to screen time, because nothing can outshine screen time. Takeaway number 4. All ages can benefit. When looking for books, try to find stories told in such a way that you can easily visualize what's happening. Look also for rich and varied vocabulary. And of course, try to find something that you and your kids are interested in. If you can satisfy all 3, or even just 2 of 3, you probably have a winner. Don't be afraid to read a book over and over either. This is especially popular with little ones who love visiting their favorite characters and stories over and over again. And continue reading aloud even after kids can read for themselves. Not only is this a great bonding experience, but it still carries with it the benefit of making your bigger kids even better readers by allowing them to focus on and develop their reading comprehension skills. This can be a bit of a challenge with teenagers, but just make it into a family event, and they'll eventually fall in. So how can all of this help you? Reading aloud to your kids is a no-brainer. It's free, it'll make them smarter, result in better self-esteem, and it'll improve your relationships with them. As little as 10 minutes every other day is helpful, but strive to read more if possible. Light books count, and you can lean on audiobooks read by someone else if you like. Lastly, and most importantly, make reading fun. Your goal is to create lifelong passionate readers. Do this by choosing great books that your kids love, and by smacking the like button and subscribing to this channel. Please also leave comments below about books you'd like us to read. That's it for now. Have fun with your kids.